were a brand new fighting force, marching into history. Young men eager to prove themselves in a great war.
If you're 25, or you're 21, you're 23, hell, you're not going to get killed.
It was World War II, and needing ever more troops to fight its enemies overseas, America turned to a young black generation and made them soldiers in record numbers.
We were just from all over, to tell you the truth, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
When black people are called upon, it's because so many white lives are being lost, and so you got to put some more manpower into the situation.
But this was the 1940s. America was still racially divided.
It was known by the time you got to the station where you first went into the Army that you would be segregated.
For black soldiers, discrimination was a second battlefront. It was a battle for respect, a battle for equality, a military that wouldn't even let them fight.
You train a man to fight, you give him a weapon, and then you say you can't fight, you have to scrub the floors.
The white people in this country, they didn't think that Negroes could fly.
But black soldiers did fly and fight and serve with valor. Their exploits were triumphs of the human spirit that history has barely recorded. This is their true story. Roger Terry was an Army pilot, one of the elite. He trained in the Tuskegee Institute's all-black flight training program, the only way blacks could become military pilots. And when he got his Army commission in 1945, Lieutenant Terry became one of the few black officers in the entire U.S. military.
The day I got my wings, I was very proud. In fact, I don't think that I've had another day like that.
But Lieutenant Terry and the rest of his bomber group learned that they would be segregated at the new air base, Freeman Field, Indiana. By order of the base commander, they were barred from the movie theater and the White Officers Club, which by their rank they had every right to use. Now Lieutenant Terry and the other officers in his bomber group faced a choice. They could submit to discrimination or disobey the commander's order.
We knew that to disobey a direct order in time of war was a capital offense. We knew that going into the officers club, should be a capital offense if they were right in excluding us. But we felt that they were not right. The president, who was the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, he said there would be no discrimination.
April 5th, 1945, Lieutenant Terry and 161 other black officers crossed the color line and entered the officers club.
I went down there and they said, you can't come in because you're trainees. I said, well, I'm a base officer. And I pulled out my card and I showed him. I was the colonel's co-pilot. And so guy said, no niggers. And so I walked over. And so when I got inside, there was a major. And he said, you're under arrest.
The Army charged Lieutenant Terry with multiple offenses, including disobeying a direct order during time of war. If convicted, he could face the death penalty. Lieutenant Terry was transferred to Godman Field in Kentucky, where he was tried and convicted of jostling the MP at the Officers Club. A minor infraction, but still a felony. The price for civil disobedience was dishonor, a reputation tarnished, a life forever changed, because America was not yet ready to accept black officers.
It affected my life in the fact that I couldn't get the job I wanted. I couldn't do the thing that I was prepared to do. That was practice law.
The miscarriage of justice lasted half a century. But in 1995, the Army finally set aside Lieutenant Terry's court-martial and admitted it was wrong. Through it all, Roger Terry was proud he took a stand for equality.
Someone asked me, said, are you the Rosa Parks of the integration of the Army? I said, hell, we did it 20 years before Rosa Parks did it.
Robert Routh was only 17 when he joined the Navy to learn a trade.
I really wanted to become a radio operator. I wanted to get at learning Morse code, and that's really what I had hoped.
Instead, the Navy shipped Ralph to its ammunition loading station at Port Chicago, California, and made him a laborer.
I do feel that I was bright enough to have gotten some of the schools that were offered to those who wanted to prepare themselves with some type of a vocation. The Navy made no attempt then to allow us to utilize those opportunities. And this was strictly done on the basis of race.
Throughout the military during World War II, blacks did the hard labor and the dirty work.
They built fortifications. They built roads, laid down bridges. They did that kind of stuff.
I know a lot of guys that were at Port Chicago. They told me that, they treated them like dogs. And I could see that having no officers, having only white officers, they didn't have any leadership.
At Port Chicago, the work went beyond heavy lifting. It was unnecessarily dangerous.
These ships, transport ships, would come into Port Chicago to be loaded with ammunition. And the ammunition would run from a 30-30 rifle shell to 2,000-pound bombs.
The sailors didn't know how dangerous their work was.
Believe it or not, I had no apprehension about what we were handling. We were told that none of these shells or bombs or what have you had fuses.
But on July 17th, 1944, something went terribly wrong.
I was just laying there in my bed, and this humongous sound came from the dock area.
2 ships in the Port Chicago dock exploded in one of the biggest wartime disasters to take place in the U.S.
How long I lay there, I don't really know. And all at once it hit me that I wasn't seeing.
202 black sailors dead, 233 injured, and Robert Ralph, permanently scarred, lost his sight forever. It was the single largest loss of black sailors in all of World War II, and the surviving sailors lost their trust in the Navy, which many of them believed had been negligent.
They proved that they were working under conditions that were not safe, that it was an accident waiting to happen, and it did happen.
And when the sailors asked for bereavement leave, the Navy ordered them back to work loading ammunition. 50 refused.
It never fazed the other people that, okay, the ship blew up and all these guys got killed, and they're saying, well, why wouldn't they go back and unload some more ships? Well, they wouldn't do it. And I feel that they were right, and I would have been right with them.
The Navy court-martialed the 50 sailors and convicted them of mutiny.
Dishonorable discharges, reduction in rank. It was done with cold apathy, almost hatred, you might say.
Now, Robert Ralph speaks for his convicted shipmates.
I would think that there should be a complete exoneration. I would like history then to restore the good name of these people that were so badly maltreated and mistreated, castigated, names defamed.
Vernon Baker is one of World War II's most highly decorated combat heroes. But when he first volunteered for the service in 1941, the Army turned him away just because of the color of his skin.
The first time I walked into the recruiting office, I said, well, I'd like to enlist in the Army. And he said, well, we don't have any quotas for you people. He just dismissed me as if I was a little mouse or something. And it made me very angry.
But Vernon Baker didn't take no for an answer.
I went back to the recruiting office. And this time there was a different soldier, a sergeant, sitting behind a desk, and he asked me if he could help me. And I said, yes, I'd like to enlist in the Army. He said, well, come right on in and sit down.
Vernon Baker had no idea his persistence would make history, but it did. It was the final months of the war. Hitler's elite German troops were making a last-ditch stand to defend their position in Italy, and they were inflicting heavy casualties on the Allies. Black soldiers were finally going to get their chance to fight, and Vernon Baker was among the first. On April 5th, 1945, Lieutenant Baker's company was given a seemingly impossible mission: to capture a German stronghold 3 miles behind enemy lines. It was a stealth operation designed to take the stronghold by surprise. But Lieutenant Baker and his platoon were discovered by the enemy.
We were in sight of the castle, and the German came out and threw a hand grenade at us, and I shot him.
It was the beginning of a ferocious firefight. With cover from his men, Lieutenant Baker made a daring solo assault on the enemy positions.
I went down and I found 2 more dugouts and threw grenades in them and fired some rounds and killed some more soldiers.
But now the Germans zeroed in on Lieutenant Baker's platoon with machine guns and mortars.
They cut us to pieces. And we were quite a few yards behind the enemy lines. We were right in the middle of them.
All that was left was retreat. But Lieutenant Baker heroically insisted on staying behind to cover the withdrawal of his wounded soldiers. When it was over, 18 of his men were dead or injured. But Lieutenant Baker had single-handedly killed 9 Germans and destroyed 3 machine gun nests.
I sat down at the bottom of the hill on Highway number 1 there on the west coast of Italy and vomited.
The Army awarded Lieutenant Baker the Distinguished Service Cross, the nation's 2nd highest honor. It was less than his heroism deserved, but it was no mistake. 50 years later, a government commission uncovered evidence that the full account of Lieutenant Baker's heroism had been covered up. President Clinton personally set the record straight.
When Vernon Baker's commanding officer first wrote his award recommendation, he observed that Lieutenant Baker, quote, desperately wanted the men of his company to hold their ground and was willing to sacrifice his own life in an effort to win our battle. That passage was never forwarded.
Discrimination had almost robbed an American hero of his rightful place in history.
If I was worthy of receiving the Medal of Honor in 1945, I should have received it then.
On January 13th, 1997, the last chapter of Vernon Baker's story was finally written.
Commander, post the orders.
President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, has awarded, in the name of the Congress, the Medal of Honor to First Lieutenant Vernon J. Baker, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty.
And God bless you, Vernon Baker, and God bless America.
Vernon Baker became the only living Black World War II soldier to receive the nation's highest honor. The private battles for respect fought by black soldiers in World War II changed America forever.
You couldn't treat a man who just saved the world for you the way that you had treated him before he saved the world. Even though people tried, it just wasn't going to continue. So by the 1950s, the integration thing started. Black guys simply said, no, wait a minute, I just killed 30 Nazis, I come back here, I have to take this crap from you. And so things began to change.
When the war was over, full equality was in sight. 3 years later, in 1948, President Truman signed the order integrating America's military.
Every black soldier that fought in the Second World War has been vindicated. Everyone.